6:03, looks like, oh, 6:02, sorry. Okay, may I please have everybody stand for the flag salute? Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the Newman-Crows Landing Unified School District Board meeting. We have nothing to report out about action that was taken in closed session as of now. Public communication, agenda, and non-agenda items. Any person wishing to comment on agenda and non-agenda items may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name. It would be appreciated if you would limit your comments to 3 minutes. California law prohibits the school board from taking action on any matter which is not on the posted agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the board. Per board policy BB 9323, individual speakers may be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda or non-agenda item. The board may limit the total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. With board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. The president may take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask that additional persons speak only if they have something new to add. Okay. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed 5-0. Information discussion items. Yellow Middle School presentation. Mrs. Smith. Oh, Mrs. Smith, is there anyone that would like to speak to the board? Sorry. No? Thank you, Mrs. Smith. I apologize.
Right. I'm Michelle Smith, the principal of Yolo Middle School, and we are Newman-Crows students. So we have our 21-22 school year, and our primary goal is to reopen the school and to meet the students' social emotional well-being. Was our biggest piece that we're working on. We're also working on academically meeting our students where their needs are and understanding this year more than ever. Our students need the differentiation and acceleration. So we're working on that with our staff. We'll be implementing our new writing program, the Step Up to Writing, while at the same time diagnosing students' academic needs, utilizing our ramp assessments and instructional walks, rounds. We're working to provide the best supports for our special education students also. Okay. We have 734 students on campus this year. We had 83 students who returned to us during the summer and participated in our summer program. We've seen that our students are really enjoying being together and seeing each other. They definitely have a lot to say when they're hanging out with each other. They took a little while for them to get warmed up back in the classroom, but their personalities are definitely blooming there also. And here is a picture of our students enjoying our new photo booth that we got for our site through Student Council. Electives, our most popular by far, of course, is art, which you can see with some of our art projects that were done in our art class. They did a beautiful job. We're also offering music, guitar, which is also highly enjoyed, journalism, yearbook, Student Council, National History Day, World Culture, Spanish, 21st century public speaking, drama, and ag exploration. We have our DLI program, which in 6th grade, it's ELA and history that they're doing in Spanish. And then in 7th and 8th grade, This year, we were able to hire a history teacher to teach Spanish. So we have Spanish and history for those students. During the summer, our students enjoyed all of our different summer offerings. This is a picture of the Lego class and the students taking the pictures. So the pictures that you'll see out here in the hallway, those were actually all pictures taken by our students this summer as they enjoyed using the cameras and figuring out how to take pictures of different things. We are also seeing our students are really excited to participate in all kinds of stuff. So sports, and in everything in the community, we've noticed our students are really trying to participate. So everyone's really active right now. Currently, we have our soccer tryouts that are starting this week, and then our volleyball tryouts will be starting shortly. This is right over here. You can see the tent. This is when we did our club rush. So we have some clubs on campus that the students are all participating in. We have all the above club. We have the HYLC. We have a gaming club, a chess club, an eco-friendly club. And then we're beginning a fast JV club and an anime club. Our most popular by far is, of course, our gaming club. That one, we couldn't possibly have enough spaces for them if we tried. During the summer, our teachers had some things that we purchased for our summer program, which are being used during our school days now. So the drones, the cameras, the VR goggles, the 3D printers, we're working on using all the different things that we purchased over the summer. All right, I'm going to pass it over to global literacy for a minute for their part of the presentation.
Okay, so Mr. Santor and I have had this dream for a while. It started with the TOSCA grant several years ago. We wanted to bring virtual field trips to students in Newman without leaving Newman. We had no idea that the global pandemic would really increase the need for that. So now that we're here, we've been afforded this opportunity to have a beautiful elective for our students called 21st Century Global Literacy. In that course, our goal is for students to understand how their footprint on the global society, how they're connected to that and how that's connected to that. So we're studying things. Our first unit is actually on fair trade and sustainable farming, okay? So that's the first thing that we've studied with them, and they just finished up their first virtual field trip to a couple of farms in Vermont, and we'd like to take you guys on the virtual field trip. So we brought some VR goggles if anybody would like to see them.
Oh, I'd like
Sure.
to.
So just real quick, a couple of things. First of all, when I hand you the goggles, kind of grab them from the front corners because the controls are on the side. I'm just going to get them started and you guys can go. When you want to look around, you don't need to turn your chair. All you need to do is tilt your head one way or the other and it'll scroll.
Oh.
Okay?
Don't touch the sides.
Yeah, that was it.
Touch the orange.
Grab the front corners.
Yeah.
They're very real feeling. I put it on during the summer when they were doing a drone thing, and I got motion sickness. I mean, I normally do, and I still got all VR goggles. So it's like, all right. Very realistic.
Yeah.
Mess it up too.
No problem, let me help you.
I did it so you wouldn't feel that.
Remember, I'm not a tech person. Uh-oh, it stopped. It stopped.
Oh, they're tricky
didn't-
little fellers.
Yeah, from the front.
It's okay, I teach 13-year-olds.
Okay, this
Adults are much
this
harder.
older person still undone it.
Here, let me see this.
I didn't try. Did I undo it?
Is it working?
Did you?
Now, are we supposed to see something superimposed?
Are we going to-
Art?
Okay, I'm gonna touch in the front, right? I think I just stopped it. I stopped it again. Did I? Oh,
The thing is a lot of our students.
The kids know
they don't really
it.
know.
Right.
You can put it on my face.
I'm enjoying what I'm seeing. So the whole point.
You have to
is
put it all the
give
way
our
up to your
kids
face so that it can
experiences
sense you.
In this enclosed world to expand their horizons, right from moving. And so we're trying to put together other types of field trips, hopefully around the globe. I'm working with some people from well, these were the easy ones. I got one that makes kicklets. Yes, But again, just giving the students an opportunity to learn in a different way.
Okay.
And to give them a chance to experience other things other than Newman, see how other cultures live, other people's thinking about the same issue. Trying to bring civil discourse to Newman. So.
Local as well, and talk about some of the stuff happening, not happening there.
We could absolutely do that. The thing is one of the reasons we did sustainable farming and fair trade is because farming is such a big part of Newman's community.
Yeah.
And so we thought the kids would be very relevant to the students. And a lot of them were able to make connections between some of these small but high-tech farms and the farms they see in their area. So it's been really good.
It has.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for
Thank you, Global Literacy, for sharing that.
Thank you so much.
The plans are using it in this course, in the history and in ELA. So a lot of different teachers have plans to be able to use those for different reasons and to give the students that experience outside of just the classroom.
Do you know if that started with a Tosca grant that was like aimed around doing dissections, virtual dissections? Is that different?
Our task is designed to bring in the classroom. So
Okay.
the kids who are unable to financially go other places, we can bring that
That's
to
right.
them via Skype and via all of those things.
Yeah, that was our goal like 4 years ago, but as things have developed and then since the COVID, we've really had to reevaluate some of the important things the students were needing. And so that's why we've made some changes.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, just to wrap up a little bit more about YOLO, we, in our after-school program, we currently have 48 students enrolled because we have limited staff with 76 students on the waiting list. So we have a lot of students who are still waiting to participate in it. Our journalism class are working on doing our morning announcements and creating a video weekly announcements by figuring out their own stories, doing interviews of staff, and just reporting on different events on campus. So they're really enjoying trying to stretch themselves and get to know new people. We had our first rally outside because we're in outside rallies and realized we didn't have a speaker system that was loud enough for them all to hear us. So that made for a really interesting rally. the whole way around. But at least we figured out what the mistake was, what we needed so that we can fix it to be able to move forward and enjoy it better the rest of the year. Just as we wrap up this year for YOLO, as we get started, we're working on just participating in different things to give students new experiences. So we're working on participating in the spelling bee, on continuing to participate in the National History Day, and just help our students transition to being on campus again after they've been gone for so long, and just become a part and create our YOLO Panther culture together. So we've seen that they really enjoy being together. They're definitely coming out of their shells and participating more in the classroom, and their personalities are definitely shining forth. So that's YOLO.
Are there any questions for Mrs. Smith? No? Okay, thank you.
A comment to Mrs. Smith. I know that you were locked up for COVID when back to school night happened.
Yes.
And I just want to say what a wonderful job your staff did. When you have a weak leader that isn't there for some reason, things fall apart. Your staff stepped up. It was a great event, and it speaks well of your staff and of your leadership.
Thank you very much. I
Thank
know
you.
I hated missing it.
They had your back.
Thank you.
We have a new introduction. We have a new student board member. Alexia, is it Castaneda? Castaneda?
Yes.
Castaneda. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your report?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alexa Castaneda, and I look forward to working with you all. It's nice to meet you. So I could definitely say there's a lot to talk about or when it comes to Oristimba, from the transition away from distance learning and seeing the new faces on campus. I can speak to everybody that to some degree, we are very, very glad to be back and in person. Like with every aspect, there have been hiccups with our motivation, but from what I see, students are really eager to make changes to help themselves learn and be better and more present in the classroom. It's interesting because even my peers who used to not like attending classes pre-COVID are really, really happy to be in class. Yeah, they're even coming in early. It's crazy. It's crazy. But there have been a lot of events, and it really shows how our students are stepping up to be more involved. So our recent rally, the football games, the powder puff, the club rush, we've had an influx of clubs. We've had the Nabi Club, which is a mental health club. We had the STEM Club, which is a club centered around the sciences. And it's really helping the students get back to what they used to have on campus. And it's been especially helpful to the sophomores and the freshmen. Basically, they're two freshman classes. They've never been on campus. And it's been really helpful to them because they're finally getting out of their shells. And it's really nice to see the upperclassmen encouraging them to do so as well. At Club Rush, we were having some freshmen hide behind their friends, and the senior classes were telling them, come here, come on, sign up. It was really nice to see that because it really shows how our students are welcoming and just mature enough to know when to help each other out. There have been various things going on with our classes as well. The seniors are preparing for their senior trip. We have been doing a lot of fundraisers, such as we had a beverage booth at the Fall Festival. We had a shaved ice event at the football games, and the class is currently planning their Seas Candy fundraiser, and they have a lot of other plans for that trip as well. And our senior trip, it's very interesting because this year we're having different plans from what we used to have. There's a new president now. We're having a grad night, which has not happened in many years, which is very, very exciting to see. And so far, the balance at the moment that people would have to pay is roughly $550, but the students do have the option to do community service and gain credit from those activities to lower the amount they have to pay in the future. So just like the seniors, the juniors, the freshmen, and the sophomores have been really, really adamant in student council. It's very interesting to see because the freshman class did not have a cabinet in the first month, but now all their places are full and they're the ones who are submitting the most activity requests. So it's really nice to see that the underclassmen are really taking advantage of the fact that they have these positions. And for the most part, that's what our campus life has been about. Soon, errands concerning homecoming, the dances will be the buzz of our school. If anybody has any questions for me or anything at all, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. And If at any time you have meetings, you have things like tests or extra homework, you're welcome to leave after your, or if you let us know, we may have to even put you earlier, okay?
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, and we appreciate your input.
Also, if you're here when there's a vote going on, you don't actually have a vote, but you do by like bylaws have the right to say, you know, before you vote on this, the students feel for this, against this, something like that. So you should totally exercise that if you, we often forget to ask, but you should totally exercise that if you have an opinion from the students, please.
Mrs. Betancourt, the iReady.
Yes, good evening. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on iReady. It is a comprehensive assessment and instruction program. We're looking at, we're purchasing for our K-12 students. So it connects diagnostic data on every student and a personalized instructional path. It is available. What we like about this program is available K-12, so we could see growth over time for all students in a consistent assessment. K-8 students will also have an online personalized pathway. And it also is it's highly correlated with SBAC. So it's a good predictor of SBAC scores down the road. So we'll have some data throughout the year on that actually correlates to how our students would perform on SBAC at the end of the year. It will replace Stride. Stride was a program we were using. It was only available K-5, and we needed something for our 6-12. So this one is a consistent program for K-12. So just wanted to give you some background on that. Edward, do you have the ESSER? I'm on the next one. Yeah. So the next topic, Carolyn and I will tag team, is the ESSER 3. So ESSER 3 is a grant from the Elementary and Secondary Relief Fund. It's about the third round of money. For this one, it's a good sized pot of money. We have about 3 years to spend it, and we need to develop a plan that is submitted to the county. So we're going to give you some information tonight to kind of front load you. We're going to be bringing the plan in October. So basically an overview, every school in the district is getting this money based on, Carolyn, maybe you can kind of give them based on how we got our allocation. That's kind of your area.
There was a complex formula of how they were allocated to districts, but we have about $4.5 million to use over the next 3 years. So we will be looking at how to best allocate those dollars district-wide and a little bit to the school specifically, but it's part of our whole long-term plan for all of the money that we've received from the federal government and from the state.
And at this point, we have not actually spent any of this money yet. So it's going to be helpful to extend some of the programs we've already started. This money will help us extend those programs out even further. So the purpose is to address learning loss, to support a safe reopening, to sustain safe operations at our schools, and to meet the academic, social, and emotional and mental health needs of our students. This is basically in response to COVID. So this money is to support schools in addressing the needs of students after they've been out of school or on distance learning due to COVID-19. 20% of the funds have to be spent addressing learning loss, or what we call learning recovery, because our students are going to recover the learning that they may have missed out on during the distance learning or the pandemic. But we have to dedicate 20% to things like interventions, after school support, tutoring. So that will be in our plan. We again are having a little almost $4.5 million, and we have to have a plan that addresses how we're going to use the funds and how we're going to continually promote a safe return to school. So those two go hand in hand. These are just examples of allowable expenses. I'm not going to read them all to you, but these are ways that we, per the grant, are allowed to spend the money.
And it's kind of a mixture of all of the funds that we've received thus far. Some were for more for PPE and kind of the initial funding that we got was the crisis funding. Now we're
then we got funding for how to adapt technology, everything like that, professional development. This is kind of a combination of a lot of things. And the allowable list is very broad.
And what you're going to see is a lot of overlap with our LCAP. So a lot of the things, and they know that they've intended it to overlap with what we're already doing. So you'll notice some of these things we've already addressed in our LCAP, family engagement and mental health. That's been addressed through the LCAP. We've done a lot with the health and safety for the campuses, but that's something we're going to be working on ongoing. It just depends on what Mr. Smith or Mr. Posey hears at a meeting each week on what we're required to do to keep our staff and students safe. We want to maintain our services, retain our staff, and make sure that they're also prepared to deal with our students coming back after the pandemic. Here are some uses that we are tentatively looking at for ESSER funds. They're very broad, they're not specific. ESSER funds are given to the district, not to the site. So we're looking at it district-wide, but each site may have a little bit of a different stamp on the funds that we use. Academic support may look one way at Hunt and a different way at YOLO and a different way at Von Renner, depending on student needs. So everything is based on the data and the student needs. Oops, sorry. I don't know what I'm doing wrong here. Yeah, it is touchy. Here, I'll let you go. Oh, wait a minute. There I go. Okay. So we do have a return to instruction plan. You'll see our website. It'll be published tomorrow. Everything will be on the ESSER tab on our website. If you go under the district info, you'll see it, a link to, it'll say ESSER 3. If you click on that link, you'll see the information that we're sending out that will be there available to the community. There is a safe return to school plan. And there's also our regular COVID safety plan that we've been working on and adapting and updating as needed. We will develop a plan on use of funds that will include a budget. So you'll see we're going to do this and we're going to spend this much money on it. So you'll see that in October. Again, once those plans are both available, our actual board approved plan will go on the website. And we are right now in the process of surveying stakeholders. We've sent this presentation is ready to go out to the sites. They can use it at site council meetings, second cup of coffee, any, ELAC meetings. We have a DLAC meeting coming up. We'll do this same presentation to get feedback from the community. And we'll always, as always, constantly be updating any plans that we have for with the ESSER 3 and the safety of our students. So those are some of the things we're going to be doing. You will do a public hearing, I believe, for the adoption of this plan next month. And then as we get the plan and have our survey results come in, we'll put those on the website, some of the results. And we have to revisit every 6 months or so to update or address any new concerns that may have arisen. So it's a lot of money. And Carolyn's done a great job of making sure that we take that money and it lasts the 3 years. We can spread that out over 3 years and get the most out of that money possible. Any questions?
I just wanted to know what the source of the funds are. Is it state money that came from the federal government, or if you know?
This is federal.
This is federal money.
And it,
There have been pots of money along the way that were allocated from the federal government, but the governors in each state had the flexibility to award those as they saw fit that to address the needs in their states. California did put a lot of it toward education. That's what we call the GEAR money. The GEAR is the G stands for the governor. So that is, we count it as a state revenue, but it is derived from the federal government. All of this is from the federal level. Some of the larger state grants that we're getting, the one-time grants, are derivatives of this federal ESSER money as well, or CARES Act that was given to the states for their discretion.
but I guess what I'm asking is did this money pass through the state before it came to us, or is this our accounting in a certain sense? Is it an accounting that we owe to the federal government, or is it an accounting that we owe to the state.
Okay, so it comes from the federal government. I believe it trickles through Sacramento and then comes down from the county and then into the county treasury.
Okay.
Mrs. Mendoza, as we're spending the money or as we decide to do something, does it go back to somebody else to approve it? Or is it the board that is approving the monies with your input?
We'll be approving the plan, which will have input from our stakeholders on how they feel we should
Mhm.
be allocating the money. But
It doesn't go
so
back
it's
to
not,
be
no,
signed off.
not for individual items. We'll have categories and we'll have expenditures tied to those categories. And then you'll be adopting the plan as a whole for
So-
us to implement.
So in terms of an audit, it would just be if we follow the plan,
Yes,
not like everything has to be approved line item.
correct.
We follow. the-
Correct.
And one of our jobs is to update is to look, not necessarily update the plan every 6 months, but to look at the plan
Mhm.
ongoing. It's not going to sit on a shelf. We have to be looking at it and like, well, we need to spend a little bit more on professional development, or we're noticing this need. So we have to be adaptable over the next 3 years to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the students and the staff and not just sticking to the plan, the way we wrote it, but we're going to have to make adaptations and be flexible with the money. So we're going to look, our plan will speak in broad terms. So we may say professional development, what that looks like at YOLO, or that they're really more, we're going to work with them on how that looks at for each site or grade span.
Exactly.
So it's a living document. It's
Yes.
It's a
modified
living
as we
document
go
for
along.
us. It will be approved once,
Mhm.
but it's always, we're always making adjustments based on student need. That's just what we do. That's how we do business. So
Yeah,
Thank
I mean, when we align it with the LCAP, as we go through and we monitor that, we also have the extended learning opportunity grant, which we review to make sure that we're implementing all of the things, all of the components of that. Because we don't want to get to the end of the year, the end of the plan time period and say, oh, oops, we forgot about this piece. So we will look at this on an ongoing basis. Staffing is challenging as we know. So where we may not be able to staff something initially, we'll go back to it and try it again at another time or adapt the plan accordingly. So, and that's why we would go back and look and revisit ongoing so that we're always monitoring, we're looking at the data and we're seeing, well, maybe this tactic doesn't meet this need any longer. So.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Posey, construction projects? Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't bring you up to speed on a couple of construction projects that we're looking at. Of course, the pool's the big one. We have not heard back from the Department of State Architectures as of yet. We don't really expect to until maybe the first week in November, somewhere around that time. And inevitably, they will have notes for us on the designs as typical. We did hear back from the county that they had some notes on access to restroom showers, which we knew that was we had a plan for that already. So we're anticipating that. In terms of the possibility of moving forward with a multi-purpose room at Von Renner, we had a conversation with Dale Scott about doing a ban to get the money to start construction, or say start planning. Construction still a ways away, but to start the architectural planning of putting a multi-purpose room at Von Renner. And what he found was very encouraging, that it could actually save cost by moving forward quicker than waiting, because as construction costs rise. Of course, now we wouldn't want to go out to bid for construction at this moment until the supply chain catches up. But certainly in terms of getting the architects ready to go and start that planning piece, it seems like it may be the time to move. So tonight I would ask for a discussion on Mr. Scott's willing to come next month to the meeting to answer any specific questions and have a resolution to participate in a ban, the notification of bonds, and then start that process. And I just kind of get the board's consensus on what your will is in terms of doing that.
Would anyone like to address Mr. Posey's question?
I always like the idea of having some plans on the shelf. I think that if we look back before COVID happened, we were not swimming in money. We were in a particularly tight time. And we have a loan for completing YOLO, and which is wonderful. The kids are making good use of that. And I'm glad that we built those facilities, but it's been very tight at some time. So I'm not necessarily ready to run out and borrow, a band is a loan. We'd be responsible for repaying it. And I'm not necessarily anxious to run out and do that now, but I think it's worth looking at the specifics and the numbers to, and whether, how much of it we could finance ourselves and how much of it would need to be a loan. But I like having plans on the shelf because, the economy is very sticky, and we could see the federal government come in and say, if you have shovel-ready plans, here's some money. And it'd be nice to have plans at that point, but I'm very sketchy about borrowing money at such a economically uncertain time.
And I should have pointed out to just clarify that the ban is different than a certificate of participation, the fact that it is against the bonds that we passed. So it's just, we're going to borrow the money, you're right, we'll pay them back with the Measure X, is that right? Measure X bonds. And where the cost for doing that, the belief is that, or Dell will tell you, is that the cost of construction will go up more than the cost of doing the notice of bonds issuance, right? The bonds anticipation.
The bond
note. That's what a
anticipation.
ban is. The word just came to me. So the idea is if we do it now, we'll pay less than for construction than if we wait 6 to 7 years and construction goes up, but that dollar amount we can take is the same. So that, but he'll go over those numbers if it's the will of the board to bring them in. I didn't want to bring them in if that wasn't the will of the board.
I personally think it would be good to hear from him. And like add more to, yes.
I think that we promised the public something and we should move forward as quickly as we can, especially if we're going to get it for less. So
we'll put him on the agenda and we'll have him come in to do a presentation on what is an action item on the resolution.
Yes, Mr.
Decision.
Posey. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Posey, are you going to do transportation also?
I am going to do transportation. I want to kind of give a second to thank Patricia at First Student publicly. She sends me a transportation update every Monday, and it's really thorough and it's really transparent. And our partnership with First Student has been absolutely incredible during this, I'll call it a crisis, because it is a transportation crisis. And I think I didn't realize how deep it was until I saw these numbers. So right now they have, they're basically 18 drivers short of being at full capacity. That means they're operating just over 50%. And so that's what we're up against when we plan our transportation routes. And I know Kim Mendoza and Kim Betancourt have worked tirelessly to make as many kids, transportation available for as many kids as possible. And we do appreciate that. First Students reporting to us that they actually brought in one of their national recruiters to help interview and to help recruit people. They were here for 3 days. They did add a second person to behind the wheel training. So we now have 2 people who can train, which every driver has to do a one-on-one 20-hour behind the wheel. And there was just one person now, so we've doubled our efforts in that regard. And right now they have 4 bus drivers in the classroom training. They have 1 currently doing the behind the wheel training, and they have 15 in the queue to start the classroom. So appreciate everybody's patience. I know that we're running very thin on our transportation routes. And I know students are getting on the buses incredibly early and sometimes not getting home till incredibly late. I heard one story that, they're leaving before dad goes to work and getting home after dad gets home. And that's not the ideal situation. And we're aware of that. But there is help on the way. And every day it gets closer to when we're going to have a full complement of drivers. And we really do appreciate First Student we play a lot of what if games with them where they say, well, what if we did this? Or what if we did this? And we're finding solutions that we've never explored before because of this. And I do appreciate their partnership.
one of the things as a board member and in a community, I'd like to thank your staff who are not bus drivers, but who drove for, I believe, the first 2 weeks of school, getting early and the bond that you made with the children that you met. It shows what our district is all about. And the parents up by where I am, which is Diablo, were upset at first at the time, but they can see what's happening in it and what the district is doing and trying to do. Now, when those 18 drivers, is it like, one goes to Patterson, one goes to Modesto, one comes to Newman, Patterson, Newman, like that?
Yeah, there's that. And then remember, we have we have special ed buses running too throughout the entire county. So it's, it's a fair, they get one, we get one, it's equally divided. And there's been a few times when I've had to reach out to Patterson and they've reached out to us about, hey, we need this to happen because we're kind of in a bind, and we've worked really well across the district lines to do that. And everybody is in this, affects Justin and Mr. Pruitt and sports, appreciate his work. We found some buses to get our football teams and our sports teams where they need to be, but they're not going to be yellow and they're not going to be as cheap as they were. But that's as Ms. Castaneda said, that's a big part of student life, and we don't want to deprive that of them. We want to certainly make sure we provide the best educational experience we can. And to your point about, we have a bunch of people who stepped up in this district to get here early and to drive, and the anecdotals that came out of it were, I miss the kids. I can't wait. I want to go in the class and see them. And it really bonds were made and relationships were made. And that's just a testament to what we do here. I'm really proud of that.
Thank you for your leadership in that also. And okay, next, we have some homework that we're doing. One is about transportation, lactation, developer fees. Are there any homes being built now that we know? No, okay, didn't think so. And the academic achievement tests, so please read them carefully. Okay. Action items, consent calendar. The consent calendar items are routine in nature and usually do not require board discussion. Individual items may be removed by board members and presented for discussion and separate action. The consent calendar will be adopted by a roll call vote. Are there any questions? Okay. I'll second. Mr. Wallace?
Aye.
Mrs. Hurst?
Aye.
Mr. Snodderly?
Aye.
Mr. Bizarre?
Aye.
Mrs. Conforti votes aye. It's passed 5-0. Approve resolution number 21-22/02. Textbook sufficiency. That's all of our textbooks that we had a list of. May I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Which one? Vern? Okay. Mr. Wallace?
Aye.
Mrs. Hurst?
Aye.
Mr. Snodderly?
Aye.
Mr. Bizarre? Mrs. Conforti votes aye. It's passed 5-0.
Just a second.
Sure. Do you want to see mine?
Just need to type them in.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Approve resolution number 21-22/3, adopting the GAN limit. May I have a motion?
So moved.
May I have a second? Mr. Wallace?
Aye.
Mrs. Hurst?
Aye.
Mr. Snodderly?
Aye.
Mr. Bizarre?
Aye.
And Mrs. Conforti votes aye. It's passed 5-0. Resolution 21-22/4, employees, short-term employees. Mr. Posey, would you like to speak to that? Is that?
Certainly. So this is a resolution that will allow the district to hire clerks that will basically staff Mr. Smith's COVID-19 response team. It's a product of the mandate from the County Department of Public Health that requires us to do contact tracing as well as line listing of any close contacts or any obviously positive employees or students in the district. It's taking almost 8 hours a day to do the paperwork involved in the tracing and in the reporting of employees. They won't, this isn't the testing team. This isn't anything like that. It's left to the medical professionals. This is the clerical side. And it'll free up our human resource department to do things like human resources. It is a short-term employee, and we've notified CSCA about this. So they're less than 75% of the days that we're in operation. And it's for this year only. So it is a position that would be outside of the union, outside of the collective bargaining agreement. And that we understand it's positioned just until June 1st, the end of the school year. And then the position would dissolve.
Do any board members have questions? No? Okay. May I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Wallace,
Aye.
Mrs. Hurst,
Aye.
Mr. Snodderly,
Aye.
Mr. Bazar,
Aye.
and Mrs. Conforti votes aye. Passed 5-0. Approve 2020-2021 unaudited funds. Mrs. Mendoza.
Thank you. Edward. He's loading the slides. There we go. Okay, this is the year-end recap of all of the activity from last year. So I wanted to start with just kind of an overview of what the different funds are, because you'll see all the different the forms in the report. The Fund 01 is the general fund. That's where probably 90% of the activity is, the day-to-day operations. 11 is adult ed. Fund 12 is formerly, if we ran our own child development programs, if we had our own state preschool, we used to have a program called Stone Soup that we ran through there. We do not use this anymore. Fund 13 is the cafeteria. Fund 14 was used to be deferred maintenance. We don't have to track our funding there anymore. We can do it in the general fund as part of routine maintenance. And then Fund 17 is a special reserve. There are a lot of special reserve funds that where districts can put money aside for specific projects. We tend to use this one to put money aside to replace vehicles, because we don't get specific funding for that purpose. Fund 21 is when we receive bond proceeds. That's where those go. Fund 25 is where developer fees go. These are all have to be kept separately. Fund 30 is depending on the program that we receive funding from the state, whether it's Prop 1D or Prop 55 or wherever the money comes from. It either goes into either Fund 30 or Fund 35. And those are all facility related funds. Sometimes if the district has to provide a match for a project, we have to deposit funds out of the general fund into Fund 30. Fund 40 is for capital outlay. We had some donations from Rotary, for example, that went toward the school farm. We tracked that through there. We could also put money aside toward a specific building project using Fund 40. Fund 51, we don't do any of the transactions in Fund 51 but the county treasury tracks the activity of the bonds when they're sold, when the interest is posted, when we receive the money from those. That's all tracked in Fund 51. And then Fund 73 is our foundation account, where sometimes we will get donations for a specific purpose, and that's where our golf tournament funding was also recorded. So 2021 really was not what we expected when going in. We came out a little differently than how we went in. So our revenue at the end of the year, when everything was counted and all the bows were tied, we ended up with about $46.6 million, and we spent $44.1 million. So how that was broken up mostly was LCFF, but state and federal made up a good sized chunk of that as well. And that much bigger than normally. For the expenditures, it was about 80% or so went to salaries, which is typical. But really, it was a smaller percentage than I would have thought, just because we spent we made some investments in technology, we made some one-time investment with this one-time money that was not earmarked for salaries. So that's why it was a little bit lower than I had anticipated. So looking at through the year, I like to track where we were budget-wise, where we ended up. And last year was all over the place. So we started thinking we're gonna have about just under $40 million in revenue, and we ended up with 46 million. This is all that influx of one-time money, the deferrals that didn't happen, all the things that we thought were gonna go wrong didn't go wrong, except that the kids didn't come to school. And that being said, we didn't spend money in some areas where we would have if the students had been here. You know, our utility costs were lower, our consumables were lower, all of the things that we usually spent money on, we didn't need to. So our expenditures came way down as well. But with the one-time money, we did make some investments, so we spent money differently than we would have otherwise. So our ending fund balance, we thought we were going to end at about just under 5 million. We ended up at nearly $9 million because of all this money that came in that we didn't spend. So looking at our ending fund balance over time, I did a chart where you can see where the beginning balance was, where we projected is the orange, where we thought we were going to end up, and then where we actually ended up. So you can see the last couple of years, in 18-19, we had a high ending balance because we got some one-time money that year, and then we had a natural correction because when we spent it down, that's the up and down cycle. And you see where we thought we were going to end this year, and then where we actually ended. And that's just the way it happened because the money just kept coming. I mean, every time they said, well, here's some more, and then here's some more, and then here's some more. And of course, there's strings to attach to this. So, you know, you couldn't just run out and negotiate it. It was all earmarked for a purpose. And that's where we've had to be very strategic with making it last as long as we can, watching the due dates and watching the expiration dates, and really just making the planning for these investments and getting the best out that we can. So in our capital facility and building funds, we started out with a little bit of money left in the building fund. We're working on some expenditures for the tennis courts and the pool, redirecting the Oristimba entrance as part of that project. And now in the beginning phases of planning for the Von Renner multipurpose room. So that we do have a little bit of money outside the building fund, and that's why I wanted to include those as well. The county schools facility fund, we received some matching funds from an older project. So sometimes when that money drops in, that's a nice little bonus to put toward projects that are in progress. Cafeteria fund, something I'm very, very proud of. We served 723,000 meals last year, which is pretty incredible since we weren't even in session. The staff worked really, really hard. We did 7 days a week, 3 meals a day for about 14 months in a row. And as a result, our fund balance went up about $462,000. We also got some additional funding from the government, and we applied for a couple of small grants to get through because we had some expenditures that we weren't expecting. We went through a lot of packaging materials that we wouldn't necessarily have had to use. So we applied for grants as they came along to cover those sorts of costs. But in the end, we were able to make some really good investments in equipment over the summer, and we did some work in the Von Renner cafeteria, brought their ventilation and everything up to code, replaced 4 of their ovens and their stove. So they're up and running just like in the nick of time. thanks to Matt and his crew getting that scheduled and taken care of. So we ended up in a really good spot to start this year. So the additional funding due to the pandemic, we are looking at a total of $13.5 million additional above and beyond what we have, above and beyond what the state's giving us. I mean, the state gave us additional funding, and then we have just through the LCFF, there was an additional funding, and then now through all of the different avenues, we're getting this. This is a grand total of where we are right now. Some of it we have already spent, and the rest we are planning for, and that's what you'll see the plan next month. So things that we've done so far was the summer program, staff development. We did some staff development at the beginning of last year to get teachers acclimated on how to teach distance learning, how to do this remotely. We did some investments in the classroom, getting some technology to really enhance the Zoom experience, if that's a thing. We have done we did a lot of hotspots. We did additional Chromebooks. We went through a lot of Chromebooks last year. People using them at home tended to have some difficulties. We had to send them in to get for warranty issues or just kind of damages and things. We had to have a lot of spares in the hopper. We did a lot of sanitizing and cleaning equipment, supplies, things like that. We did a major upgrade to the classroom filters, the air filters and the air purifiers. And then we did the continuation of meals in 2020. First student did our meal deliveries during the summer. So now we want to extend this funding out as far as we can. So this year we've added some intervention teachers at the elementary schools. We extended the instructional aid paraprofessional time. We had money specifically for that purpose. The extended learning day, doing more interventions after school. Where we already talked about the iReady. Mrs. Betancourt talked about the iReady earlier. We've invested in some interactive panels in the classrooms. And we provided some additional mental health clinicians. So next year will be a continuation of those services. After that, we'll see, okay, is this working? Do we want to continue that for the third year? We really want to extend these new positions out as far as we can. I mean, and really because the result of the pandemic and the learning recovery is not going to happen in 1 year. It's going to be a multi-year. So we want to stretch these things out as far as we can. Does anyone have questions?
I'll just add a thing that one of the arts to spending this money as we've been working on is things that we can purchase that meet those goals, but the capital long outlives the time frame. And one of the things we're looking at is outdoor educational places, tables that can go outdoor with, of course we have to spend the money this year, but the table doesn't vanish after a year. And so that's a strategic way of spending the monies, because the capital in that table will live 10 to 15 years. And so that's kind of the purpose for when we look at these ESSER 1s, 2s, and 3s, is we understand that we have, well, for the ones, pretty quick dates to spend, but then the 3s or the ESSER 3 monies are a few years out, but even go beyond those 3 years.
Move we approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, Mr. Wallace,
Aye.
Mrs. Hurst,
Aye.
Mr. Snodderly,
Aye.
Mr. Bizarre,
Aye.
Mrs. Conforti votes aye. It passes 5-0. Next is to appoint the 2+2 committee representative.
So we're meeting, I think it's tomorrow, in fact, the 2+2, and it would be customary that the board would formally nominate and appoint the members of that ad hoc committee. So when we meet with the city, it's duly constituted.
So you want a nomination?
Yeah,
I'd like to nominate Paul Wallace, Mr. Wallace.
Thank you. I'd accept.
I second.
Is that a,
Oh, and I want to nominate the board president. Whoops. Mrs. Conforti.
Okay, no problem. Mr. Wallace?
Aye.
Mrs. Hurst?
Aye.
Mr. Snodderly?
Aye.
Mr. Bizarre? And Mrs. Conforti votes aye. It's passed 5-0.
Mr. Bizarre, you were the second on that motion, correct?
I don't
No,
think
I
I said
was.
it, but I would be happy to.
Nope, nope.
I
Mrs.
actually got to
Conforti
go,
was.
I actually got to second something. Okay,
Yes, Vern. Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Meetings are back up and running.
Yes.
Are they monthly or?
Usually monthly.
The 2+2 we've scheduled for every third Tuesday, except this month because there was a conflict with the city. So it'll be every third Tuesday.
And I want to say through next year.
Can we get a report
About it.
whenever? Yeah, I know we've had meetings in the past and the rest of us on the board never got an idea of what was talked about.
It should be part of both
Mhm.
mine and Ms. Conforti and Mr. Wallace's reports on board nights, but you'll also get it on the week.
All right.
Absolutely.
Burns, some of what happened last year was we didn't meet very often, if
No, I
ever,
understand
and
that.
canceled. Yeah,
Or
Yep.
tell us that you didn't.
right. Thank you. Okay. Future agenda items, the Williams Act reports findings, the Citizen Oversight Committee, its annual report, and Mr. Scott will be here. And Mr. Posey, your superintendent's report?
Well, thank you. First, I'd like to welcome Alexa to the board and
Yes.
very excited to have you here and I hope you enjoy it. Remember, senior year goes very quickly. So before you know, it'll be June. So please enjoy every moment of it. I'd like to welcome the students too, that are learning about government and civics and thanking their teacher for assigning them to come to a board meeting and get to experience this. Welcome. Glad to have you. Spent the last month doing some instructional tours. Been in well over 100 classrooms in the Benton Court and really enjoyed the tours, enjoyed working with the students and the teachers, and we're seeing a lot of growth early on. And we see a lot of hardworking teachers and paraprofessionals and just everybody understands that it's a call to action and they're responding to that call. And I really appreciate that. I made the back to school nights and those, I thank everybody for staying late and getting those services provided and really good visits. And I think the parents appreciated it. I would like to remind everybody, we have our vaccination clinics open to the public at the Orriston High School starting on September 16th, where you can get your first dose. And then October 7th, they'll provide either doses 1 or 2, depending where you're at. And then October 28th will be a second dose only clinic. So those 3 dates. And I believe we're also working with another agency to expand those dates, but that's what we have now. So urge everybody that wants to be vaccinated to get vaccinated. Our independent study program, it's almost full. We are limited by law to have the same student to teacher ratio as a regular classroom does. We've seen a level off of enrollment. We actually seen a couple students come back to in-person from the K-4 world, which is nice. But we are right there up against the bumper. So any more enrollees and we have to either hire more people or figure out a contract with another agency. It depends on what's cost effective and best for the students. So but right now it's levelized. Next month, we will be introducing a after school programs director to the board. We're in the process of onboarding our candidate and will provide relief to our site administrators who won't have to manage the after school program. But also, as you saw in Mrs. Smith's presentation tonight, we have a lot of students who are on waiting list and the ratios are very strict with the state on how many we can have. And so having a director come in so we can get more people onboarded and get those programs running at maximum capacity, because it is providing a great service to the students, not just in after school programs, but in the interventions pieces. We really need to get that rolling. And then I'd like to just remind the board by saying this, I am looking forward to Saturday's workshop. So if you forgot about it, that was my way of saying, don't forget, you have a workshop on Saturday here at 9 a.m. And that's my report. Thank you.
I got a question. Are COVID cases kind of settling out or I mean, I haven't heard lately.
I would say, yeah, but I think Ryan would stare at me, but they're not as sharply on an incline as they once were. He's gotten a little bit more sane in the last couple of days. It was pretty bad for a while and how many we were having each day in terms of not just COVID positive, but the contacts, the close contacts. But we saw a little bit of a level towards the end of last week, and we'll know more this week. But it's certainly not as bad as it was 2 weeks ago, I'd say.
I would say ask the person with the double mask. No, anyway.
Yeah. Do you want to comment on that at all?
I would just simply say that I've been keeping a tally from since this first day of the school year. We're up to 87 cases. That's students and staff combined. It's overwhelmingly students. But I think that a lot of that speaks to the PPE protective measures that we have taken in place. It also speaks to the vaccinations, because when you can see a positive case occur in a classroom and not see the employee convert or show symptoms, even with the possibility of a close contact, it does go to validate the vaccination efforts. So we'll continue to track those numbers. I am taking some pages out of playbooks from other school districts, because come on, I mean, if they're doing something good, let's do it too. And create a dashboard of sorts that will show you the cases per site for students, the cases per site for staff, and then continue to track those numbers.
And that'll be available on our website.
Yes, sir.
Soonly.
Yes.
All right, thanks.
With the patches of those COVID clerks. Thanks.
Mr. Bazaar?
Well, I don't have much to offer. I would just say that I know as a parent of one student here in our district that the fact that we have extracurricular activities is super important and does translate in a much better attitude, at least for my son, going to school, knowing that he's going to participate in different things. Makes it worthwhile. And just as Alexa said, I think the vast majority of kids are happy to be back in school. It's something they want to do. So keep up the good work.
Mrs. Hurst?
Okay, I'm just going to start off by saying one case of COVID is one too many. However, I'm so pleased that people are back in person and the students are back. And I'm even more pleased that the two projects of the multipurpose room and the pool and tennis courts are kind of moving along. Welcome to Miss Castaneda. Yes. I didn't make as many schools as I wanted to for the back to school nights, but I made a few and really enjoyed those. My last thing that I want to say is Fire Prevention Week is next month. So I hope that we can have a little friendly competition between the male and female firefighters and the dress down. We'll see. Okay. And may she win.
Mr. Snodderly?
School seems to be off to a great start. The kids that walk by my house at 3 o'clock, I sit on the front porch drinking wine sometimes, and I ask them. And they're all happy to be back in school. And I want to praise the worker bees, behind the scenes people. Lunch, ironed out, seems to be going good. People don't realize how much work that takes to get that going. I did talk to Matt about disinfecting the schools a little bit before we started. People don't realize what it takes to keep a school clean and operating, particularly in the era of COVID. And raise your hand if you've driven a van to bring kids to school or to a sporting event. Remember those days as a principal. It's like, hey, we don't have anyone to drive the bus. Can you get the volleyball team over, to Corcoran? So I appreciate all the hard work and all the extra work you do to get the schools off and running and making this a very good year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snutter. Mr. Wallace, you're still typing.
I'm actually caught up though. I managed to capture Mr. Snodderly's comments. Back to school night was wonderful. Saw some really great activity going on, and Mrs. Conforti and I attended several. I need to miss one or two when I was working, and Mr. Posey, and I think we're going to plan a little bit of time at this weekend's meeting where we will do a little bit of rehash of what we saw, and make sure that we didn't just go and hang out, but that we can look at what we liked and can support and all that kind of stuff. Working on Association of School Boards to try and plan our dinner. We usually have a dinner every fall, and we try and do a little bit of education. We try and do some recognition. We're obviously worried about planning a dinner and having nobody come for COVID, but at the same time, we're in this uncharted times. We've got 12% of our budget or more being or 25% of our budget being tacked on. All the rest of the trustees are in the same boat. I feel like we really need to get some information and knowledge out there to help. We're in a time when we've got a lot of extra work as trustees. So we're trying to get that planned, and a little bit of talk about perhaps you see something in the future. There's a lobbying trip to Washington, D.C. with CSBA, and I may be asking if you guys would support me to attend that. And I'll know more about that. I think tomorrow afternoon we've got a CSBA meeting. So as I learn things about that, I'll bring them back to you guys, and maybe with a request. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. I'd like to thank all of our teachers. First, I got to all the schools and was excited by what I saw, but just what you were able to do when you didn't have students in front of you, and to see their faces walking around at back to school, so excited to show mom and dad what they did, or to say a couple of them like, this is so much better. And he says, I don't ever want to see that computer thing again. It was nice to hear them say, and that they miss their teachers. It's not the same as being on a camera. Mrs. Mendoza, thank you for all I know the money part. Mr. Wallace does most of it. I look at a lot of it. I mean, I look at it, but that's the biggest headache. I hate my checkbooks. So to see what you're doing and what the state does to you, and Mrs. Betancourt keeping us all sane, and our staff with a leader that, like with Mr. Posey, he stepped in earlier than he had to. And I think the reason our schools ended up like they did at the beginning was because of your leadership. Thank you very much. And the rest of the people. So thank you. And Mr. Smith and everybody else, and the office staff, which aren't here right now. Well, Mrs. Fox is, but that, and Alicia, welcome aboard. We have a lot of fun, but it's all because of you as students that we try to do our best to keep it up for you. So thank you. And thank you, everyone. And please stay healthy and safe. And maybe soon we can get rid of these. I hate them. Have a good night. Bye now.